Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon or evening to those of you outside the Pacific time zone. My name is Julie Cruzal. I'm the operations manager at TAL Global, and I welcome you all to today's presentation of Checking In Before You Go International Travel Security Tips. A special thank you to those of you who joined last month, only to find out we had to reschedule. Mother Nature overruled technology that day, but we're so happy you've come back for today. This is the first free webinar in TAL Global's ongoing 2023 Security and Risk Management series, and we're very pleased to host so many of you here today. Whether your interest in this topic is for your own personal safety or you're responsible for the safety and security of your corporate travelers, we are excited to present information today that will help you toward those ends. Before I introduce today's speaker, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Excuse me. Today's webinar will be approximately 30 minutes with time left at the end for questions. You will be able to submit questions during the presentation by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And then at the end of the presentation, we will answer as many as we're able to get to. If we're not able to get to all the questions during the Q&A session, we will still reply to your question via email if an email address is provided. We will also have a couple polling questions during the webinar, so please look for those questions and participate. And lastly, there will be a recorded version of this presentation available after today's live broadcast. For those of you who don't already know us, TAL Global is an international security consulting and risk management firm with over 28 years of experience supporting domestic and international clients with a wide range of security and risk solutions. Today's webinar will be presented by TAL Global founder and CEO, Johnathan Tal. Johnathan has over 40 years of experience in the security industry, starting out as a military field intelligence officer for the Israeli Armed Forces. He is an anti-terrorism security specialist, a licensed investigator, a member of ASIS, ATAP, and former president of the World Association of Detectives. With that, I will hand it over to Johnathan.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I see people here from Scandinavia, from Turkey, from Asia, India, Middle East, Oman, some from Latin America, and it's a big crowd. So thank you all for bearing with us. As Julie mentioned, we were planning to do this webinar last month, and the weather overruled us, and power and internet did not cooperate. So one of the things we are going to be discussing today is when things don't go according to plan. So as we return to business and leisure travel after the pandemic, I want to share with you some good practices, which many of you know, but many of you may have forgotten, or some of you may have forgotten. And a reminder would be appropriate. I see some professional security directors, people from various clients of ours, some partners who work with us overseas. I see some travelers and some people who may not have a lot of experience in this area. And my goal today is to cram as much material as I can within this time that we have here, to both refresh your knowledge and maybe provide some nuggets and insights and some new information for some of you, or maybe all of you. So with that, let's jump right in and talk about what has changed. Today's world, we have all of those things. We have crime, terrorism, we do have war, we do have pandemics, and we will have pandemics, kidnapping, and polarization. So let's talk about these things for a little bit. So crime has always been here. It's always been there. It's always will be. But I think based on recent statistics and reviewing crime figures pretty much everywhere in the world, crime is on the increase. And it does come in waves. It does kind of rise and ebbs with time. But I think after the pandemic and after being closed and just the situation today, particularly in the US, is that crime is on the rise, and we need to be concerned. We need to be aware, and we need to be concerned, and I will be talking about that. terrorism comes and goes, but again, we need to be aware, and we need to, when we travel, and I'll talk a little bit about travel and why is that different. We need to be aware of places where terrorism is prevalent and avoid it. And one theme that I will come back to again and again, I advocate avoidance rather than extraction and heavy armor. I would rather avoid situations and have our clients stay away from areas. And believe it or not, with the war in Ukraine, 2 weeks ago, we had a client who demanded on us providing a travel plan to Kiev. And this was not a business must, and we strongly suggested avoiding war zones, and eventually we were able to convince that client that that was not the best course of action. We talked to them a little bit about the train rather than flying into Kiev, and various things to various concerns. And we're heavy on mentioning the risks, because when you are at war, the missiles don't choose who they fall onto. And so that's a situation that we have today, first time since Second World War, that we have a major war going on in Europe. COVID may be almost past, but the lesson we got from COVID is that pandemics will happen, and we need to be aware of it. And the sooner we're aware of it and avoid areas where pandemics are prevalent, the better. Not just because of the risk of infection, but because of the social uncertainty and the things that go with it that we've seen over the last 3 years. K&R, it's a term I want to make sure everyone here knows what it's about. K&R is kidnap and ransom. This is something that is prevalent in a number of areas around the world. There is insurance for that. There are services that help extract people and negotiate the release of people. Again, we advocate avoidance, we advocate prevention, but we need to discuss that, because there are places in the world where this is a way of life, this is a way of business, and express kidnapping, virtual kidnapping, and actual kidnapping are major issues. Last but not least, we live in a polarized world, and more so than in the past. And that polarization is it's not just political, it's economic, it's social, it's religious, and it's becoming an issue that we need to take into account because it impacts every item that's on this slide. It impacts the way people treat each other. It impacts the way the interaction, and it impacts risk. And so we need to take that into account. So let's talk about what to do. Okay, I mean, this has kind of been a grim slide, and really what I want to do is to talk about what are the things that you can do, because there's a lot you can do, either as an individual traveler or as someone in a corporate environment responsible for executives traveling, or any employees, any representatives traveling to various places around the world. But before I go into that, why is travel security different than the security that you practice in your corporate campus or your home, or anywhere in the US or wherever it is that you live? So there is a fundamental difference, and that is when you travel, you are outside your milieu, you're outside your familiar area. Everything is new, or most everything is new. You're faced with different languages, with different customs. When you get into a cab, the driver doesn't necessarily understand what it is that you are saying and where it is that you want to go. When you deal with money, when you deal with phone services, with emergency services, it's all different. And when it's different, you are not as well equipped to deal with it. Add to this the fact that different cultures behave differently towards things that you do. And I'll talk a little bit about that and how to behave when you're in foreign lands. And I'm gearing that part mostly towards Americans and North Americans, because this is the most of the audience today. But I think this is applicable to people who are not living in the US too, because when you're going outside your environment, you behave differently, and you should be aware of that, and you should mitigate it. So that's why we're talking about travel security, because it is higher risk, it is outside your environment, and you need to be aware of different things than you are just going to work and home and picking up your kids from school. So we start with before you go. Business travel, personal travel, leisure travel, doesn't really matter. You should define what it is that you are going for. What are the goals of this trip? Business travel is a must. You know, the business today, as it was in the past and as it will be in the future, includes face-to-face meeting with colleagues, visiting customers, reviewing locations, and really you can't do everything virtually. It's not, at least at this point, I don't think it will be in my lifetime avoidable to travel and to be places. And the same with leisure. You want to go to exotic locations. You want to get out and be on beaches, whether you live in Minnesota or Nebraska or Iceland. You want to go different places, and so travel is needed, and you need to have a clear goal as to why it is that you're going, where are you going, what are you going to do there. You need to prioritize. You need to have a clear idea, even on a pleasure trip, and make an itinerary. You're going to Singapore, and you're going to spend 2 days in meetings there, and then you're going to go to Hong Kong, and you have one site visit, and that's going to take, you know, the first half of the day, and then the second half of the day you have a client dinner, and then you fly out the next day. That's an example. And then you need to do some research before you go. You know, how many airports there are in Singapore? How do I transfer from one terminal to the other? Use company resources. You know, if you're doing a business travel, you do have someone, whether it's corporate security, whether it's travel, whether it's HR, maybe it's your business unit, and then do some of your own research as well. There are some great resources that are available, and I'll talk a little bit about those. And you need to be aware too of who is traveling. You know, I mean, it's different when a CEO is traveling versus an engineer. There is different exposure and different risk assessment that needs to be done. You need to research the crime, social issues, culture, and the laws. Now, I want to touch on the case of Brittany Griner, the pro basketball player who was arrested in Russia for having controlled substance. Clearly, Brittany or whoever planned her travel didn't do a good job researching what is legal and what is not legal in Russia. If they did, she would not have traveled with a controlled substance, and she would not have gotten 9 years in jail. And the US did not have to make a very costly transaction to get her out. So the research and the prevention and the understanding what it is that you're going into is critical. It's the best tool you have to prevent problems, and I can't speak highly enough of the importance of doing that. We talked about risk profile of the people traveling. Clearly, if an engineer versus Bill Gates, there's got to be a different level of security because of who the person is and their risk profile. So that part needs to be done, needs to be customized to who it is that's going. Okay, so free resources. US State Department, and I know we have some retirees from the Department of State's Protective Services on the webinar today. There are great resources. You can go online to OSAC, to Department of State. You can get a profile on the country. You can get crime. You can get a whole bunch of free information. The same with most countries today have their foreign offices, office or departments that have that information. For basic information, you can go to CIA World Book. That's a really good resource for the country that you're going, the cities that you're going to visit. What's the population? What what are the religions? What are the customs, etc. And then use your local company office. There are people there that live there, and you should talk to them before you go. They read the papers. They watch TV. They know what's going on in their city. They take their kids to school. Talk to them before you go visit them. Understand what it is that you're going into. Understand the laws and the customs. And it would be great if you could get a few words memorized in the local language. People really do appreciate it. But things like, how do I get help, or I need help, or I have I need to communicate. There's a few phrases that you need to know. Obviously, thank you and excuse me and things like that. Just a few words will take you a long way. Communication plan. Communication plan should be obviously with your home, with your loved ones, with the company, your headquarters, your boss, whoever is sending you to that trip, and local offices if there is one, and have some backups. So have someone who knows where you are and what your plan is. That itinerary that we talked about in the prior slides, make sure that you share that. Copy your travel and important documents, your visas, your insurance, your passport. If your passport gets lost, you should be keeping a copy somewhere else. You should be able to walk into a consulate and have them issue you a temporary passport if that is getting lost or stolen. Register with the Department of State. So when you are going to a foreign country, you can register and you will be known by the embassy in that country as someone who is traveling in the country. And should you get into trouble, at least they'll know who you are, where you are, and they'll respond better. I think that would make it a lot more smoother and expeditious. Medical records. Copy your medical records. Give it to a sealed envelope to your local contact. Make sure that people back home have it. If you have a medical condition that requires medication or treatment, make sure that is available, both the records and that someone else has it. So what's a full assessment? What's a travel risk assessment? Risk assessment takes into account the factors that we talked about, the crime, plus the assessment of the resources, the police, the medical, other various mitigation factors that can come in if you get into trouble, if you're being accosted, if you're a victim of a crime, if you're being kidnapped. And what is typically done for risk assessment is using SMEs or subject matter experts and locals. When we do a risk assessment, we use local people. We don't just do this from our office in Silicon Valley. We have input from locals who know the routes, who know the hospitals, what's available, what's not. We basically incorporate that into every risk assessment that we do. So I think at this point, Julie, we're going to put up the first poll for people to answer. Please take a minute, answer this poll, and we'll share the results with you. I think it would be interesting to see the percentage of the people who have or do not have a travel security program in place.
We'll give people a few more seconds. I see that there's still responses coming in. And there are the results.
Okay, so good amount have a travel security program, and I think, you know, commendations in order for those organizations that have it, and those that don't really need to get with it. Okay, how do I get? Yeah, thank you. All right, let's move on. Okay, so again, I'm going. I'm after Brittany Griner again. You pack for their location, no illegal substances, no inappropriate things, and make sure that you pack just what you need and that you can blend in. And I'll talk about the dressing because, in fact, I'll talk about it now. In the United States, we wear things like baseball caps and t-shirts with sorry about that. T-shirts with the alma mater, with our universities and things like this. You know what? People in other countries don't do that. Baseball caps are not that prevalent in other parts of the world. Yes, there are branded T-shirts and sweatshirts and things like that, but it's very American. It's very North American to wear baseball caps, to wear Bermuda shorts. I mean, you know, it's kind of like the stereotypic North American traveling to Europe, being loud, having jewelry, wearing white socks, sports socks with sandals. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous for me to bring it up, but it's important because you do not want to stand out. You do not want to be spotted from a mile away as a tourist and as an American tourist, if you are an American, and you need to be behaving and blending in as much as possible. Women in the Middle East or Muslim country, modest and head cover. You should cover your shoulders. You should cover your hair. Men, you know, tank tops are not cool in most places in the world. They're fine in your gym. Put away the Rolex. Just buy a cheap or digital watch or something else. Minimize time on the phone. Heads up. Observe people when you arrive. Make eye contact. Your body posture should be straight. You should be direct. You should be going. You should be focused on your mission, on your goal. Where are you going? And do that. Try not to look like you are burning time or bored or not connected with your environment. The biggest culprit in my view, and I have kids and I'm talking to them about this all the time, is phone on the street. Do not hold your cell phone looking at it when you are walking on the street. Make sure that it's in your pocket, such as, you know, the same with your other important stuff. By the way, no fanny packs. Fanny packs tell who you are from a mile away. If you need to have some way to conceal documents, wear a belt, a money belt under your shirt, under your jacket. Do not walk around with fanny packs. Those are targets and they are telling people who you are. Again, something that might sound silly, but when you walk around the corner in a city, when you walk around a building, don't hug the building. Walk 6 feet away from the wall and make a wide turn so that you can see who is on the other side, because you can be surprised and therefore at disadvantage if someone just catches you right as you come around building. I talked a little bit about the clothing. I want to talk a little bit about situational awareness. Situational awareness is a whole topic that we can do a whole webinar on and really not exhaust that issue. But it is about your ability to get in to anywhere you're going and be aware of what's going on around you. When you go into a movie theater, be aware of where the exits are. When you are in a restaurant, look around as you walk in and see where the kitchen exit is, where the windows are, where if need be, you can throw a chair and get out from the window. When you are on the street, where is a place where you can hide if a vehicle is careening off the roadway into the sidewalk? Where is something solid that you can hide behind if you hear shots? So it's, it's one of those things where you do this, you scan, and the only thing you need is the awareness to do that. And when you do, it becomes second habit, second nature, and you will do that when you are, particularly when you're traveling, but you know what, you'll do it even at home. And it's important because that is the kind of thing that response. It's muscle memory. It comes in to respond when situations are turning sideways. So we can talk a lot more about situational awareness. I will spare you here, but I will come back to this a little bit. Let's just briefly talk about cyber considerations. The less information that is, or confidential data that you take with you, the better. Not everyone can afford a new laptop, but if your company provides you with a clean laptop, that's great. Same with phone. Public networks, hotel, Wi-Fi's, etc. are open. I mean, you should consider those. Everything that you use, that you communicate without a VPN, from a VPN, by the way, is a virtual private network, which is encrypted and protected to some degree, a lot more than just sitting in a Starbucks or a cafe and using a open Wi-Fi. Don't use those. Consider visual and sound bugs in your hotel because they're there. In some countries, they're prevalent. In some countries, not. But you should be aware that whatever you say in your hotel room may be compromised. So if you have a loaner phone or you have a clean phone or travel phone, and you speak in a place not your hotel room, but a lobby or outside in the street, I think that would be a better hygiene regarding your information, your confidential or your personal information. Now, your personal information is important. It's beyond just your privacy because you know what? Through your personal information, someone can hack and find their way into the corporate domain and compromise it basically by having your personal identifying information. So treat it not just, well, no one cares about my personal information, because they do, and it's usable, and it's a valuable commodity, and it's actually being sold on the net. So be aware of that. So we so far talked about getting prepared, getting research done, getting your clean phone, clean computer, and now you are traveling. So you are going, you have your goals, and you have your situational awareness, and you remember all those things, and you therefore are going from one place to the other. So let's first talk about when you arrive. When you arrive at the airport, what we believe is best practice, even for someone, even for a low to medium risk assessment, we believe a security driver is best practices. It's really easy, and we do this a lot, and there are a good number of on the call today of people who have used up our services. Basically, it's a local person who is bilingual, who will have a car, a reasonable model and comfort car, and will wait for you at the arrival lounge with a sign. Now, will the sign say Johnny Walker or whatever your name is? No, the sign will be a generic sign. It will say lollipop. It will say Cabernet. It will say something, something that's generic, that's not identifying you as the traveler, because you know what, maybe someone will be able to identify you. So call me paranoid, call me overbearing, but I don't like putting my travelers' names on the sign. So this is something that we do. Also, you will have the driver's picture, email, cell phone before you get on the plane at home to travel. And the same with the driver. He will be able to identify you from a picture, we'll have your contact information, and to make sure that you're making the contact with the right person at the airport, and that person will take you to your hotel, to your meeting, etc. I don't like changes of last minute in your itinerary. So if you're going from the hotel to a meeting, don't stop at the bazaar because it looks really cool. Get out of the car and start shopping. You're outside the coverage. You're outside of the planned route, and you may be without coverage. And I don't like it. So be aware of that. When you use escort by either a security driver or colleague, or maybe even a full security detail, again, be cooperative with them and work with them, because they are local, they know what's going on there, and you just have done a little bit of research. But if they smell something, trust that, because they know better. When you're going out, where are you going? What's the restaurant? Who is going to be there? The transportation, if you're not using your security driver, you're using a car, use a car from the hotel. Don't just go wave a taxi out. And research how to walk within a unknown city if in fact you can't find transportation back. Again, I'm stating the obvious. Don't accept drinks from strangers. And the last point here, I want to go back to probably about 20 years ago. I had a guy who retired from Secret Service who was working as the protection services manager for us, and he and I were doing. His name was Mike. He still is. We were doing a presentation in front of a group of HR folks. And we were talking about risks, etc. At the end of the presentation, after during the Q&A, someone got up and said, "Mike, you were in Secret Service for 32 years. You protected presidents and VIPs. What is the most important tool that you've ever used during your career in Secret Service?" And Mike looked at them for a minute and said, "You know those little hairs at the back of your neck? That's it." And there's so much truth in this, because we are biological creatures. We evolved, and our amygdala and our non-conscious brains tells us things that sometimes just gives us a feeling that something is wrong, not right. Something is wrong. So when you get those feelings, when the little hairs at the back of your neck are bothering you, trust those instincts. You may not be able to see and rationalize at that point what the danger is, but you should be paying attention and use your situational awareness and get away from whatever that thing is, whether it's a person or a situation, and do something about it. Julie, I think we have our next poll at this point. Okay. Okay, a lot less people have extraction contingency plans. Okay. Good. All right, let's talk about when things go wrong, because they do. I talked about situational awareness. I'm not going to belabor this, but it's really important. If it feels wrong, trust that it's wrong, then you may look foolish, but you'll be safe. Seek safety in institutions. Make sure to communicate as you seek safety. So also, you got to validate. Authorities may not always be the right place to go. I'll give you an example. In Mexico, sometimes you want to go to a local police instead of the federales. Not that you may not have a choice, but those are things that you need to think about. But seek hotel, police, hospital, some sort of an institution to get to. Communicate with your local contact, communicate with your home office, communicate with your loved ones. Try and get to a consulate if you can. You should, as part of your preparation and research, have the address, phone number on your phone of the local U.S. consulate or the closest U.S. consulate or embassy. What to do if you're arrested, what to expect. Exactly that. Long wait times, you will be uncomfortable, you will be questioned, you will have limited access, if any, to phones. You should not make yourself valuable. So don't volunteer anything. Don't start saying, well, I can give you some information about something else that will be valuable. Don't cut deals. Don't sign or confess to anything. Ask for consular representation and insist on not talking until they come. Kind of, self-explainable, but you'll be amazed at how stress changes people. If I've made this presentation a number of times, and in a number of situations where people were either arrested or confronted, that came back to them, and they stopped talking, they stopped communicating in a way that could have been compromising or problematic. Okay, I'm wrapping it up because we are pretty much at time. Your resources are your local U.S. consulate or embassy, your company's local representative, whoever it is, in your office manager in Singapore or in Yerevan, Armenia, or wherever it is that you're going. The contracted security providers, that would be us or whoever it is that your company or you are using. And always your support group, your family, and people that you have back home. Those are always resources that you should be counting on. I'm going to leave some time for questions. Thank you very much for your for being here and your attentiveness. And Julie, I'm open to questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnathan. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion, as Johnathan mentioned. If you have any questions and haven't already done so, please go ahead and submit them now by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. As I mentioned earlier, if we're unable to get to all of your questions, we will answer them by email as long as an address has been provided. So with that, let's go ahead and get to them. Let's see. First of all, is it costly to arrange for security support at an international destination?
So if someone is sending you to Sao Paulo and you are traveling from Silicon Valley and it costs $5,000, $6,000 for the airline, and another $300-400 a night for the hotel, etc. Yes, it will cost probably about $2,000 to get you, well, not for the transportation, but $2,000 a day to get you a security driver that would take you from the airport to your hotel, from your hotel to your meetings. That would pretty much be the cost for the day. It's not that much more than just a limo. So No, the answer is no, it's not costly, and it's a cost that is very, very well received, because you will be a lot more productive. You'll be able to do things more efficiently, and so at the end of the day, it's a cost-effective way of traveling.
Next question. I've heard of virtual kidnapping in some parts of Latin America. What exactly is that?
So virtual kidnapping is not just done in Latin America. Basically, no one actually physically gets kidnapped. I'll tell you about a case that we had here. We had a woman here in Los Gatos, which is where I live, who got a phone call from someone who sounded foreign. And he said there was a sound of a child, and she couldn't quite make it. It was like a child in trouble. She couldn't quite make the who it was, and she said, "Sophia, is that you?" And the caller said, "Yes, we have her, and unless you pay, we will harm her." So obviously the motherly instincts are immediately up there. What do you want me to do? Let her go. This ordeal took about 4 hours. The guy kept her on the phone. She went to the bank, and it was only when she was standing in line in the bank that she realized that this is probably not actually real. She texted her daughter. Her daughter texted her back, "Yeah, I'm in school. What's the problem?" So virtual kidnapping, no one gets kidnapped. It's the illusion as if someone was kidnapped, and you need to pay, you need to do something in order to free them. And we've come across quite a few of those cases. Many of them come from Latin America, but not all. And we also see a phenomenon called express kidnapping, which is basically a tourist standing by an ATM. They get held up. They take whatever, they have to take whatever money they can from that ATM. Then they're being held up, taken to another one. Sometimes it takes a few days until the money doesn't come out anymore, and at that point they are being released. Or sometimes there will be a fairly small ransom that's being asked for them, and the whole ordeal takes a few days. I have a story about that, but let's go to the next question before I digress.
Okay, next question. What if I lose my passport while on travel? Will I be arrested for not having one?
Okay, so we talked about that. Have a copy of your passport. No, you're not going to get arrested if you go into a consulate. Even if you don't have a copy of your passport, they can look you up and issue you emergency travel papers. But having a copy of your passport is a really good thing. Have it on your phone and have it in a piece of paper somewhere in your documents.
Next question. How can I start a travel risk and security program for my organization?
Well, we can do that. Your security director can do that. Basically, as you saw from the poll, there's good percentage of the companies today that practice good security, that have travel security program, and they do risk assessments prior to any travel. They refresh it, and that's how it should be done. That's to prevent liability, to minimize losses, and really, it's just good management.
Next question. Is there something simple we can do to protect ourselves while using our own laptop and phone while traveling in Europe, outside of using new/travel ones?
So I mentioned practice cyber hygiene. Do not have personal identifying information on your phone. It's difficult because it's your phone. Do not have compromising information. We had cases where people had nude pictures of themselves. They were sending it from a public Wi-Fi, and sure enough, those things immediately showed up on the internet. So have hygiene, have information that you do not want to see on the internet. Don't have it on your laptop, don't have it on your phone.
Okay, this is an interesting one. I use a fentanyl patch prescribed by my doctor for pain and need to travel with it. Is there anything special I need to do?
So prescription, a letter from the doctor is good, but I'm going back to researching where it is that you are going. What are the laws? And I would make some research about that. And we talked about medical conditions. If you do need to have controlled substance as medication, you do need to make sure that that is allowed. Where are you going? And what are the supporting documents that you need to bring with you in order to not get into trouble? And one more thing, trouble may be perceived. In other words, charges may be trumped up. So you really want to make sure that there is no excuse for you for bringing up charges on you, whether it's right or not, because sometimes that will happen.
Okay, we have a little bit more time just for a couple more questions here. I frequently travel to Morocco and often bring packages to my family members in the US. Should I be worried about this?
Absolutely. Do not accept packages from anyone. That is what the TSA agents ask you at the airport. The reason when I was doing security for El Al, this was due to a situation where a terrorist boyfriend gave a European-looking girlfriend a package which contained a bomb, and that bomb went off in a El Al flight. So we, at that time, we're talking about the 1970s. We were asking that question: has anyone given you, or do you have any package that you did not yourself pack? And so that should be a total no. Don't do that.
Okay, last question. We'll go ahead and wrap it up with, who should I contact to discuss travel security needs?
We would be happy to help. Our contact information is on the screen. Looking forward to supporting our existing clients, new ones, and anyone else. So thank you very much for your attendance.
Yes, thanks so much, Jonathan. We really hope this has been informative and useful for our audience. This concludes today's presentation. For the next free webinar in the series, we will be presenting what is a workplace violence program and why do I need one? This will be sometime in April, exact date TBD still, again at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So be on the lookout for the invitation and please join us again then. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.